Dr. JCM Moncrief in your tennis kit, driving back from Bristol? Swindon. And he's like, can we do a podcast? I was like, I can't do a podcast. And then someone cancelled on me. I'm like, we can do a podcast.
Well, we were supposed to do it Sunday.
Yeah, but...
Doesn't matter, we're here.
It doesn't matter, we're here now. How's your week been?
It's not been all right.
Mate, I must say, people are fucking loving you in the comments. Both on the YouTube channel and the TikTok channel. People are loving you. Loving your honesty, your intelligence, the way that you speak. So, yeah, obviously we need to do this more often, but really, they're really enjoying it. So keep the content going. This app can change your life. And I've been saying this to you for a long time. How's your week been?
Oh, that is getting received well. Yeah, it's not been too bad, to be honest. Ward's in a better situation than it was last week. It's weird, you know, because I thought I was working on Christmas. Turned out I wasn't. But those times of the year...
So what do you do? Just tell everybody, what do you do? Because you've finished... Like, most people don't understand the pathways once you're qualified as a medic. So what are you now doing? Because you were a GP, weren't you, for a while?
I wasn't a GP. I was working in a GP practice.
Yeah.
So you got your 5 years at med school.
Yeah.
You've then got 2 years of foundation training.
Yeah.
F1 and F2 is what we call them. You've got 3 months, 3 jobs in each year. The duration of each is 4 months.
Yeah.
So I just finished job number 4 in foundation in total, which was in a GP practice.
So you've got 6 in total over F1 and F2.
Yeah,
and you've just finished 4.
And I'm now doing number 5, which is
what were
stroke.
they all?
So I started in cardiology.
Yep.
Then I went to endocrinology.
Which is endocrine system hormones.
Yeah, it means hormones, but in reality what it means is in a hospital setting is it's just a general medicine.
How do you make a hormone?
Dumping ground. So hormones are travelled in the blood.
No. How do you make a hormone? I know.
Is this a joke?
Don't pay her.
Well, we may as well just get it out there, the level we're at, won't we? What did you ask me before? Anyway, yeah, right, yeah. So then I had cardiology, endocrinology, general surgery. Now I'm on. Then I had GP, and now I've got stroke, and then I'm finishing on orthopedics, and then pure waffle madness.
Talking about orthopedics, I can have a race with you out there after this.
Go on then.
A sprinting race. I won't beat you. I've not sprinted for 2 years, Jamie. My knees are fucking bulletproof. I can't tell you the difference. I don't even think about it anymore. Up and down the stairs, no problem. Walk the dog an hour, no problem. And I'm like, fuck. My knees are all right. I can jump.
And you tried, let me just run through in my head, but I don't know if you tried stretching, but you certainly tried physio, you tried a steroid injection, you tried losing weight, you tried going vegan. Absolutely nothing worked for you. You go to an all-meat diet, and then in a matter of weeks...
30 days I've been on it.
You're absolutely flying.
Flying. Honestly, Matt, I can fucking go out there and I'll run with you. I ran with the dog this morning, just a bit. I'm still a bit wary, especially when it's wet and whatnot. I can't fucking tell you the difference. So I went and had my hair cut the other day, and my barbers take a long time because I've got a fucking fresh trim. And sat there for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. My knees used to hurt just being sat in that position. Had my hair cut. Didn't even think about it. Like first time ever, going on a plane for the last couple of years. It's sore, it just swells up. The swelling's gone. You remember how swollen my right knee always was? I mean, I even got it drained.
Yes, you did.
I got it drained. I got my knee drained and it
Which
really
one did
helped.
you do in the clubhouse?
My right knee draining, yeah. Steroid injection and drained.
Hang on, one sec. I'm going to grab a jumper out of my car and I'll just pause it 1 sec. Didn't Miles Gibson hold the needle?
He paused it. I'm just rolling. So he's just fucking got up, walked out. I might as well talk to the camera. He needs a jumper now. He's not got an ounce of fat on his body, so he gets cold, unlike me. So it looks like I've been left to chat shit for a while. But no, I was talking about the carnivore diet, and I've been vegan. Did it for 2.5, 3 years. I've been vegetarian, broke my leg. My right knee had operated on almost a year ago to the day. So I think it was 22nd of December last year. Had some repairs done to the cartilage or the meniscus, whatever they call it. Had just bits and bobs removed, and it really helped. But my left knee over the last, I would say, 3 months since I went on holiday. I went on holiday to Turkey, and about 2 weeks before that, I remember waking up one morning, my left knee was killing me. Not done anything, not injured it in the gym or anything that was noticeable. And it just got progressively worse until I've started just eating nothing but meat. I did a video earlier today showing you what I've eaten, and it's just basically beef, steak, and chicken. And it's absolutely changed how my knees feel to the extent, you can keep going. I'm just rolling, mate, freestyling. It's changed my knees and my... You see, it's weird because I've not had any back pains or any shoulder pains or any... Do you know what I mean? When I now start thinking about these things, I'm like, fucking hell.
Did you have a diagnosis of arthritis in your knees?
Yes. So...
And how old are you?
45. But both the surgeon, in actual fact, the surgeon plays tennis, and I saw her at the tennis club the other week, and she was like, I thought I recognised you. I was like, I recognise you. She was like, yeah, I'm the one that did your operation on your knee last year. I was like, what? And I said, my left knee's as bad now. She went, you book yourself in and come and do it again. But yeah, so there's wear and tear on my knees, for sure. I've got you'll know more about it, but the angle that my both top and bottom of my leg is it called the K angle? Q angle, K angle, but it's slightly like that.
Right.
Which means that there's more wear on the outside, and that's where the arthritis is.
Okay.
Which is a genetic thing. And look, I've been pounding on a tennis court for 25 years. It's going to happen, isn't it? Here we go. Q angle of the knee. So there you go. They call it knock-knee, don't they? So what the specialist was saying to me was most men my age tend to have outward bowing legs. And mine are slight. I don't know what the degree is, but mine was clearly not that bad. Fucking hell, I'd be squashing my bollocks, wouldn't I, as I walked if I was like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a slight Q angle, which is whatever, which causes my kneecaps to dislocate, which has happened a few times, and obviously the wear and tear. So you can imagine that on this outer edge now, that's where the meniscus is being broken down. But it's just been a fucking game changer. I can't tell you. Now, I barely shit. Like I've had properly 2 shits in a month. 2 proper ones. Everything, it's not great, doesn't smell great. It's like a black, sticky tar, almost. It's not great.
It will be, though. The amount of fibre you now have.
But there is always shit right there. Like, literally. You could go to the toilet now, don't need a shit. Go to wipe your bum, there's shit there. Constant. There's never not. It's never clean. It's never clear. And my arsehole stings, man, after a shit. Like, if you've ever been for a real curry, the next day, you've got that stinging sensation after you've had a shite.
Ring burn?
Yeah, I've got that all the time. I have to fucking shower twice a day and put cream there. So I'm not entirely sure fucking what's going on there. But... it's a small price to pay to be able to fucking run up and down this corridor with you and play tennis. Next time you and I play tennis together, you'll be like, fucking hell. Because I was hobbling around like fucking the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I couldn't fucking take 3 steps to the right or to the fucking left. I still beat him. So yeah, it's been good.
Credit to you, man. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because as far as I'm aware, when you told me about the orthopaedic surgeon who was advocating this treatment, he didn't actually know the mechanism by which it works, but it does work.
I think it probably works for some people, just the same as penicillin works for some people. But both you and I have been plant-based predominantly. You more so now for the last couple of years. For like 5 years, Jamie.
Well, it was lockdown, wasn't it? It's not quite that long, but yeah.
Lockdown. And they've just got progressively worse over that time. Look, I did a podcast the other day with Tom Bourne. You know Tom Bourne, don't you? The tennis coach from Leicestershire, ginger-haired lad. Nice guy. You do. You'll notice it.
I'll probably recognise him.
We've done a podcast. Great guy. And he said, Do you know what, Nick? The thing I admire about you most is you go balls deep straight away. There's no fucking half-arsing anything. So if I'm going to be a vegan, I'm the most strict vegan that has ever lived. And now I'm a carnivore. And it's like, Ben's there, come on, have a chip, have a chip. I'm like, no. I've committed to this for a month. I'm eating nothing but meat. And I can do that. So I guess I'm an extreme version of it, really. But it's... There he is. You recognise him?
I don't.
You don't? He played at Leicestershire. He's Loughborough Town tennis player. Nice guy. Gone through some shit. Marriage breakups, depression, all of that. But he's a life coach. He spent 10 grand to become one of the most qualified life coaches around. And we did this personality test and whatnot. It was a really good podcast. It's the longest podcast we did. It was over 3 hours. Great guy. But yeah, that's just me. Just go balls deep. So let's see. Look, you know, it's 100% not placebo. It's 100% not. My knees now feel... You like Star Wars, don't you?
Love it.
Love Star Wars. You know the ATSTs? You know when they got the ropes tied around the legs in the forest?
The AT-AT, the big ones?
No, the two-legged.
You mean the little ones?
The two-legged.
The ATSTs, yeah.
And they get the legs, and they're in the junk, and their legs like... That's what my legs have felt like for 2 years. Unstable, wobbly. Get an ATST up on here, Benno. It's the two-legged, fucking sick-looking things they are. ATST from Star Wars. It looks like an AT-AT or an AT-AT, but it's two-legged, and they're predominantly in Endor, aren't they? In the woods.
Well, it is in the 6th film, yeah.
Yes, is that Empire Strikes Back?
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, there they are. There he is. But there's a scene in there where does it trip on some logs?
Logs is what you mean. The rope doesn't work.
It's like, and that's just exactly how I felt for 2 years. All of a sudden, I feel stable. My knees don't. I'm not aware of my knees anymore, where I always was. So they were my results from this positive intelligence assessment. So basically what he's saying is everybody has these 10, you know the little devil on your shoulder that's telling you you can't do something or you shit at this. Well, they're basically these 10 things, and you answer this, 63 questions or something. They're the traits that are going to lead to your downfall. So I'm a people pleaser, number 1, and hypervigilant, number 2, but an avoider at number 3. And we called it. Tom said to me, "These are the 2 I think you are," and I said, "These are the 2 I think I am." And I put pleaser at the start. He put hypervigilant in. I put avoider as number 2, and I was nearly right. And then they go through.
Hey, look, you're the opposite of social media.
A victim, total opposite. Yeah, but you understand what a victim is, don't you? Everything's somebody else's fault. Poor me. World's giving me a bad deal, giving me a bad hand, and some people are going to be that. No, we're not doing fucking 53.
Yeah, I'll do
53 questions now. Bastard.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there's actually quite a lot in common between heroes and villains, and I think being a victim is one of them. But typically, the villain will want to reflect all of their bad experiences on everyone around them in the world, whereas a hero will want to mean that no one else experiences that. And you've still had some, tough times. Look how you're scoring on there. I think that says a lot.
I think it does. Did you see I changed my profile picture yesterday?
I did see that.
The struggle has ended. People are like, whoa, what the fuck? Did you see that post up on Facebook as well? There was a picture up there.
No, I didn't see
Ben
Facebook.
had zoomed into my eye and we could see it on there. I took a picture and I said, what did it say? It said something along the lines of, "You may see me, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. Chapter 2 begins, the struggle has ended."
You may see me, but you do not know what I'm capable of. 2024, chapter 2, the struggle has ended.
And it's weird because I'm almost at the end of the book, and me and Ben looked at each other yesterday and we says, we know what the title of the book is now. End the struggle. It's obvious. That's what it is. But it's when do I stop? And I think I've got to stop now because the rest of it that is coming and happening is not the end in the struggle. It's what comes after you've ended the struggle. But yeah, I've always been a bit of an avoider. And I knew that about myself.
Well, we delved into it a little bit, didn't we, with ADHD
Mm-hmm.
or ADD?
Yeah, we did.
If you do have that.
Yeah. 100%. I did a test the other day, Jamie. It was like 98% ADHD. He said, please consult your medical. It was one of these online things, and you answer like 30 questions, and at the end it's like 98%. Please go and consult your medical advisor because there's a high possibility that you are ADHD, ADD, and you may need medication.
Yeah, I was a little bit reluctant. I didn't think it was necessarily appropriate for A, me to give you a diagnosis, and B, for me to do it in a podcast. But with that, you are.
100%, but I don't want to change it.
Of course not. Why
I don't
would you?
want to change it. Because you know what, today, we did a load of work yesterday. We reached 10K on the TikTok channel for Pure Waffle. I had a great time with Ben. We vibed a little bit, had a bit of a celebration. I went home. Somebody bought me a £200 bottle of tequila, sent it to me. Sick. Had a couple of them and just fucking chilled out and vibed. Woke up this morning, had a nice time, and then I went back to bed. I went to sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours, because I thought I'm fucking emotionally burnt out and I am not going to beat myself up about it. Went to sleep, put my phone downstairs, didn't answer anything. Woke up, Ben had texted me, what time should I come to Loughborough? Because we had a meeting with the guys down at the restaurant, talking about their social media. And I no longer beat myself up about that, because I go, I have to do that. I have to do that. That's just me. That's ADHD. I'm all in, but then I have to have time to just decompress and just do fuck all. And I am no longer going to beat myself up about that, because that's just what I need to do. And then today, we're back on it. We're on it, we're here, we're that, we've filmed videos, we've done this, we're doing a podcast, we'll get these uploaded, we're on it. Tomorrow's the same, Sunday's the same, Monday's the same, but then Tuesday it might be, I just need to fucking do nothing. And when I mean nothing, I ain't going to walk the dog. I'm not even going to get out of bed. I'm just going to sit there, I'm going to scroll through TikTok, I'm going to have a sleep, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. And that's just it. And it's taken me to get to 45 years old to understand that and recognise that about myself. Whereas before, you beat yourself up, you're a loser, everyone else is doing this. Why are you fucking feeling like this and staying in bed and not wanting to get out of bed? And why were you so motivated yesterday? Now today you feel like you're fucking the biggest loser on the planet because you can't even get up to fucking Hoover. Do you know what I mean? Like I've eaten, I've just stayed on the sofa and you've just put your plate on the floor and that's not like me. And you leave it there, it's all day it's left there. And you just cannot get yourself up to go and wash it up. You know you should and you have to, but then it's like... And you beat yourself up and you make yourself feel so bad about it. I don't now. I just go, that's me. That's ADHD. And tomorrow it might not be the same, but do you know what? If it is, I don't give a fuck. And I'll take that extra day. Because I know what I can do in 48 hours is more than what most people can do in 3 weeks. But you need to calm down a little bit sometimes. So I don't want to go on any medication. I do not want to change a single thing. All I need to do is just find people in my life that can do the things I'm shit at.
Yeah, we need to get the organisation of this podcast timing in a bit. Is Jem doing it? I thought she is.
Well, she's booking people in.
We need to make a group chat with all 4 of us in it. Yeah, I sent Nick a message saying add her to it.
Nobody wants to watch this. Let's do the planning outside of a podcast. No fucker wants to watch that, do they? But this is just, look, this is it, isn't it? It's just where we are and how we are. You need to ask me about something, don't you? Remember what I told you off camera?
Boy, you've got a story to tell me. I
got a
can't remember
story.
what it is about, but go on, yeah.
Story.
Let's hear it.
So I did tell it on the last podcast. So do you know who Mike Bynes is?
No.
From Bosworth?
Oh, fitness guy.
Yes.
Yes. I've never met him, but I know.
Me either. Never met him. Ever. Never spoken to him. But I am friends with him on Facebook. Lift that a little bit up higher.
Yeah, I can't.
I am. You can.
No, it just falls straight back
There.
down.
Pop that up. I am. No. Just that. This arm here. Look there. There we go. I am friends with him on Facebook, and I'm only friends with him on Facebook more than likely because of people that we've got in common. So he's either requested me or I've requested him just because. Never spoken to him. I've never been this close to him that we are now. So about 4 nights ago, I have this vivid dream. I'm walking with this elderly man, side by side, and we're walking down the country lanes. Now, you know the kind of country lanes in Shenton, and near where you live, like where your house is. No cars, greenery and shrubbery and fences at the side. We're walking through, but Mike Bynes is about 10 metres ahead of us. He's not with us, he's not aware that we're there, but he's there. And we're walking through these village roads, and this old man is saying to me, have a look at what my son's done, and can you see this old barn that he's converting, and he's turning it into a fitness studio? And then a little bit further, there was a sign up saying Mike Bynes Fitness. And then we walk a little bit further down, and there's like an old converted house, and he's turning these into offices or whatever it was. And as we're walking down these lanes, this guy's communicating to me how proud he is of his son. He's really proud of everything that he's become, everything that he's done, all the turmoils he's gone through in his life. But Mike, who's ahead of us, that's sort of leading the way, but he's not, is totally unaware of this. He's not within it, he's not in the conversation. So I've woken up. We've been podcasting. I can't remember what day it was. So I get home late that night, and I never go on Facebook. It's so far down my list of priorities, it's dead, isn't it? So I've been on TikTok, I've been on Instagram, I've been on YouTube, I've uploaded something. And then for some reason, I'm going to Facebook, and the first post that appears is Mike Bynes, whose father's died. And he's been to a funeral. And the guy who's died is the guy that was in my dream. And you read everything that's there. Mike Bynes is gay. Yeah? I think his father had a hard time accepting it, from what I read. And it said something along the lines of, my father passed away, we've had the funeral today, he was a loving father, had a daughter, a son, and this and that and the other. He was a man of few words, but I know deep down that he was proud of me. And that was the fucking guy that I had a dream about, that was telling me how proud he was of his son. And I'm like, what the fuck? I've messaged this guy 2 a.m. You need to call me. Something fucking weird's happened. He's not got back to me. He probably thinks I'm a fucking nutcase. Maybe block me.
Has he?
Yeah.
I was quite impulsive at 2 o'clock in the morning, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, but you have that realization, and you know how a dream fucking dissolves over time. It dissolves, and it becomes muddled and distorted. It was so clear in my mind at that moment after I read that post that I thought, I have to tell you this. Because there's no other reason for me to have to tell you this. I don't know you. I've never spoken to you. I know nothing about your life. But this and my dream have to come together at some point, because I can't not say that.
I think you're the only person I know whom that could have happened to, because had I not known you, I would say that is the most insane story I've ever heard in my life.
It's total fucking bullshit.
But that's like at least the 3rd or 4th thing of a similar ilk that's happened to you.
In 2-3 years.
Nah, you've been telling me stuff like, no, maybe not to that extent.
2-3 years,
as long as I've known you. That's crazy. I actually blocked him. What?
But we've never had any communication ever. And all of a sudden, you've got a bloke at 2 a.m, the day of your dad's funeral.
Yeah, you can't blame him.
Saying to you, I need to talk to you. I've given him missed call after missed call after missed call. I've left him a voice note of my dream. I'm like, I have to unload this, whether you believe it or not. I have to.
Well, he'll hear about it at some point via the podcast.
Yeah, he will. That's the second time I've told it now, and it's 100% fucking legit. And it's it's probably more weird than the bloke that was going to kill himself on the train, because this was the name and the person and the signs on the building that the buildings were being renovated and he got a fitness studio. It was Mike Bynes, Bines. And it was like a bluey purple sign that it was on with white lettering. And it was like, what the fuck? Now, I could have opened Facebook at any moment during the day. But it just so happened I opened it at that time, and that was the first post that was there. It's so weird.
What do you think that is then?
The cynic in me would say there are 8 billion people on the planet, and half of them are dreaming at any one time. There is going to be some coincidences that happen. However, that's too specific. I guarantee you now, if I sat down with that Mike Bynes, his dad struggled with his son's sexuality, accepting it, deep down was very proud. All of those things that this fucking guy's telling me in the dream, I'll guarantee you if I sat down with Mike, he'd be like, you were 100% right. 100% right. It gives me fucking goosebumps on my face. It's fucking weird, isn't it? It's weird. It's weird. And I wonder, it's that fucking shilajit, I'm telling you now. It's that shilajit. I wonder how many times I've had a dream, because I dream every single night and they are vivid and real and a new universe. But sometimes I'm a different person in the same universe, in the same situation, seeing it from a different point of view. And I'm wondering if I'd have not, let's say that we decided to go to the cinema after that podcasting and I didn't go on Facebook, I would be none the wiser. It would have just been a random dream that I'd had. How many random dreams have I had that all I needed to do was see that Facebook post, meet that person that's just divorced from their wife, meet that husband that's just broken up from her, and I go, fuck me, man, I've just dreamt about that last night. Is it every dream?
Well, it's definitely not every dream, isn't it? Because a lot of them are just completely invented. It's quite interesting you touched on something, though, because we actually all do dream every night, but generally people can't remember.
No.
If you want to remember your dreams, then the best thing to do is to write them down, because you train that part of the brain. And people who do this, after a couple of weeks, they describe themselves as dreaming more and more, and they can actually remember the dreams. It's not the case that they do dream more. It is the fact that you've trained that part of the brain to recognize and store the information and to be able to recall it. So it's quite interesting, but you have to write the dreams down straight away. So I'm going to suggest to you the next time that something like that happens, maybe write some notes on it rather than dropping however many calls it was at 2 o'clock in the morning.
But that's just me. That's important. But I had to do it. It was
I get it. It's
the most important thing in my life at that moment in time. I had to tell this man what his dad had told me about him. Whether he thinks I'm a nutcase, a crazy head, a fucking dickhead, trying to fucking whatever. The entire purpose of that dream was to tell that man that his dad was proud of him. And no matter what I don't know what they've spoken about. They've maybe had arguments. They've maybe fallen out. They've maybe not spoken for 6 months. Because men of that age will find it difficult if their son was homosexual. I get that. It's a different generation now. And immediately, I can understand where this man was coming from and how his son needed to hear it. And I don't think the dad said it to the son in real life. And I think that was him saying, I need to express this to my son. And for whatever reason, you are the vessel at the minute that needs to do that. But the crazy thing is, Jamie, I don't want to believe all this. I don't want to believe it. I don't believe it. I think it's nonsense. Spiritualism and fucking ghosts. And I don't believe it.
think religious books have been written for less, haven't
But
they?
the more that I fucking push back against it, the more this stuff happens to me.
Well, there's food for thought on a Friday night. Good story.
It's a fucking,
It's a very good
yeah.
story.
But that's my fucking life, mate. That is literally my life since I decided, no, since I drank too much rum to end up killing myself. From that moment on, that's been my whole life. I have no plans. I don't know. I've basically said, whatever's out there, just take control of me and do what you want with me. I'll just do whatever you want, and I'm not going to resist it. If I need to speak to that person, let's speak to them. This person. Oh, fucking hell, Ben. What did we say the other day? I said to Ben, we're driving. I've picked him up in the morning, and I said, I want you to find somebody that is highly intelligent in terms of finances, crypto, politics. I want to sit and have a conversation with them. I want to learn as much as I can. He's like, okay, cool. How long was the text message, Ben? 1 hour. Somebody contacts me on TikTok. Hey, seen your podcasts. I want to come on. I'm highly versed in geopolitics, cryptocurrency, finance, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you in? When you in? Then done. Don't need to know. I don't care where you're from, what you do, whether you're a man. Don't even know the name. You're in. That's in. Booked in. Boom. Done. It's weird, isn't it? It's fucking mad, mate. And you're a medical doctor, and it's, I don't know. Somebody asked me this morning, said to me, do you believe in free will? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if it is all just predetermined. Like, does a goldfish have free will in its bowl?
Very limited, but
But it thinks it does, doesn't it?
it can control its basic actions.
But it doesn't realise that there's an ocean out there. That's real free will, isn't it? I want to swim to this rock or that one. And I don't know if maybe we have free will in a very confined... Having free will whilst being locked up in your house is very different to having free will in your country, or free will in your world, or free will in your solar system, or free will in your universe, or free will in the... So what appears as free will, and I want to pick that cup up, but what if there was 1 million cups that were there? Would I choose that one? Would I want to pick that one up? Would I pick that one up? It's like saying to a kid, go and have an ice cream van, the ice cream van, but you can only have chocolate or vanilla. It appears as though they've got free will because they're choosing, but the limit has already been set. That's the choice.
Yeah, it's not always a bad thing, though, obviously.
No.
Because there aren't many rules that a society needs to be able to function well within it, but not killing, not stealing are two pretty basic ones to start off with.
But none of them really matter.
What do you mean?
Our sun's going to blow up in 8 billion years. Everything that human beings have ever done, thought about, loved, killed, hated, are wiped out in an instant. So it doesn't really matter. Nothing matters. Everything is irrelevant. It only matters at the minute within the social confines and structures that we've set upon ourselves. Did it matter that Ugg Ugg killed Jug Jug 84 million years ago over Muck Muck, the woman that they both wanted?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I think there's a lot of power in here and now. And certainly I think it's a dangerous avenue of thought to go down, not necessarily in your case now, but it's certainly an awful lot of overlap between what you're saying and what a nihilist would say, for instance. He thinks that nothing matters. I'm of the opinion that if each of us know 1,000 people and each of them know 1,000 people, then you're one person away from 1 million people and 2 people away from 1 billion people. And I think that's an incredible amount of influence to have. does it matter in the long scheme of the cosmos? Of course, absolutely not. But I don't think necessarily changes any outlook we should have on our immediate actions, if that makes sense, because there are still people around us who we really care about, and it's very easy to say that nothing matters in the sense of, the sun's going to blow up, la-di-da-di-da, the earth is a third of the age of the entire universe, however many millions or billions of years it is, and that makes complete sense. But certainly if you got a phone call right now to say that one of your daughters was in danger and you had to go and help, then there'll be absolutely no force on the earth that would be able to stop you. So we do all have a lot of individual responsibility and meaning, and I think the real goal is to find meaning within our lives, isn't it? And responsibility is one of the best ways of doing that for you as a father, principally, I would suppose, then a tennis coach, then a podcaster. With that said, I absolutely understand what you mean. What you mean. Personally, it's not a line of thought that I particularly like to dwell on too much.
Is the skill not to try and figure out what actually really does mean anything? Because let's face it, if I'd have given a single fuck what anyone would have said to me a year ago, we wouldn't be sat here now in a podcast studio with fucking 10 grand's worth of podcast equipment and 10,000 followers on this and 200,000. So none of that shit that I thought would have mattered actually did matter. So figuring out, and it's that book, isn't it, that we've both read, The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck.
Not giving a
fuck. The skill that we should be teaching people. Does compassion matter? Yes. Does self-development matter? Yes. Does it matter what Maureen next door thinks about you going out in a blue suit? No. Does it matter what somebody's going to say about you on Facebook because you've gone and tried something different? No. And I think as a society, we're too bothered about things that actually don't matter. One iota. One bit. Yeah? The amount of people that are messaging me now thinking I can't believe what you're doing. It's amazing. You're doing this, you're doing that. These are the same fucking dickheads that 12 months ago would have been taking the piss out of me and trying to get me to lose my job as a tennis coach and fucking taking the piss and this, that and the other. Did it matter? No. But I love to think every day I've got, and this is what that guy said that came on, the life coach. If you and me are very lucky, we've got 4,000 weeks from birth to death. That takes you to 80. I'm 45 now. That gives me 35 more Christmases. 34 now because we've just had one. That's it. That's all I've got. So am I going to make the most of them, or am I going to sit there worrying about what she said and he said, and I want to do this, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to upset this and I don't want to upset that. You've got 34 Christmases if you're lucky. And you're a medical doctor. One of us two here is getting cancer, statistically. Aren't we?
Far less likely if we both stick to a plant-based diet, but I understand the point you're making.
But 50% of the population are getting cancer.
Is that what it is?
50% now. It was a third. So I might not get 34 more.
A lot of that is due to people living longer, though, of course.
Yeah.
But we also,
but if we put the raw facts out there, me, you, or Ben are getting cancer. If we're really lucky, we might not, but the next 3 people that walk past, all of them do. So statistically speaking, it's more than likely going to be me, because I have drank a lot of booze, and I have been a fat cunt, and I have been a lazy bastard. It's probably going to be me.
22 pills in one night.
So I've not.
That was Nick, by the way, not me.
I've not fucking got 34 Christmases left, Jamie. I ain't got 34 summers or winters. I haven't.
Is the 50% UK or
Worldwide. Worldwide, cancer rates are 50% now. 1 in 2 people. It was 1 in 3. And let's not forget about heart attacks, which is even more likely.
Everyone's going to die, aren't they?
We are all going to die, and this is what I'm saying. The things that you think matter do not matter.
Most of them.
Love the people that you need to love. Say sorry to the people you need to say sorry to. Make amends where you need to. But ultimately, do what makes you happy. But if what you feel is making you happy makes you a cunt, stop doing it. Yeah? It's not a bad roadmap for life, is it? I'm not hurting anyone doing this podcast. A lot of people think I'm a cunt. But I'm not hurting anyone. And actually, I've had more messages from people over the last 3 weeks saying, I can't reach out to a doctor or a medical professional because they don't know what it's like to have been at rock bottom. You do. Help me. How do I fucking get out of this pit? And it's the same thing I say to all of them. Stop drinking. Stop putting coke up your nose. Get to the gym. Start writing your thoughts down every day and meditate. Give it a year, and I promise you, your life's going to be so different in that year, you're going to be unrecognisable.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean, having any amount of alcohol directly increases your risk of 7 different types of cancer. Smoking affects virtually every single cell in the body. A huge proportion of adults are overweight, aren't they? And it's undoubtedly played. What are you two laughing at?
Because I just had a fucking swig of a beer as you were saying that. But January 1st, we're done. He's giving up the sugar, I'm giving up the booze.
There's so many factors that are just so self-sabotaging, that are so ingrained into us as a society, that I really don't know what the next steps are going to be.
Having a beer over the last 2 months with the people that have been around me, enjoying the success we've had, has made me happy. I've enjoyed it. And I am not going to fucking beat myself up about that.
No, of course not.
Going home when you're suicidal and you don't see your life's purpose and you haven't got a goal and you see no way out is destructive. And I understand that now. So it's not necessarily the things that you're doing, it's why are you doing them? Now, I'm not advocating going out and fucking, becoming whatever, but there's a time and a place for everything. And are there many more amazing moments than having a couple of glasses of champagne with a woman that you love and making love? Are there? Fuck, mate. There aren't. It's fucking next level. But going out and getting pissed up having fucking 40 pints and ringing up a prostitute and trying to get your rocks off that way, it's not great. It's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. One of them's leading you to fucking depression, anxiety, and all of this. The other one is heightening your self-worth, your being. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I can only speak on experience in contrast to you on the first of those two descriptions. One point I would like to make, I think is quite interesting. You've got a lot of people reaching out to you saying they feel unable to reach out to doctors because they don't think that they've been at rock bottom, haven't lived those experiences. I think there is a lot of truth in that. But it doesn't necessarily mean, in my opinion, that you shouldn't reach out and that they can't help you. Like, I'll give an example to you. I won't say what the dilemma was, but a couple of weeks ago, I think I rang you about it, actually. I didn't know what decision to make. I was like, if I ring my parents, I know for a fact this is what they're going to tell me. So I didn't do it. And then,
so I rang a fucking drunk TikToker.
But I did end up speaking about it with one of them. And even though I knew what they were going to say, so you have to take it with a pinch of salt, they do still offer perspectives that I hadn't thought of,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And therefore, I still think it's a sensible move to go to a medic. I mean, obviously, if someone came in describing some of the situations that you've been in, for example, I can't draw on my personal experience from that. But I can still offer my perspective, and it's more than likely some viewpoints that they haven't considered. It does help people. Personally, I think it would be a good idea to put that message out to people who are messaging you. Because there's
it's just
often...
a weird one.
It's a very weird one.
It's taken me by it's shocked me because both me and Nick are getting predominant, almost exclusively young men. They start off with, so this is the typical message that I get. Hey man, love your content, been watching you for a while. What you say is really relevant, keep smashing it. I then reply something like, thanks so much for your reply. I really appreciate the support. Let me know if I can help in any way, shape or form with content creation or whatever it is. And then a few days later you get, I'm really struggling. I'm living a life that I don't fucking feel that's got any purpose. I'm not getting on with my missus. I'm drinking every day. I'm snorting coke. I'm doing whatever. And I don't know what the fuck to do. And I go, whoa.
It's a lot to take on, isn't it? Because I get similar messages.
It is. And I had a young lad on here the other day called Cam. And he's finding the same. His account's probably at 50k, so he's starting to blow up. And he said the same thing. He's like, man, I'm getting people saying, I mean, you have to watch the podcast. He read it out there and then. Some guy was going to kill himself that night.
Yeah, I saw.
A video popped
Christmas
up.
Day, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and he was like, I watched your video and I didn't do it. And it's like, wow. And I said to Cam, I said to him, this takes a lot of energy out of you. It really does. People unloading their traumas. I've had people tell me things that I don't think they've ever told anybody in their life. And they don't know me. All they've seen is me walking my dog in the forest, on a podcast talking to you, being a dickhead out there, whatever. And they are spilling their guts to me. And you go home sometimes and you're like, fuck. I don't know how to respond to that. But then equally you go, if I fuck this response up, they might kill themselves. And I'm not trained for that. But I sure as hell know they're not reaching out to fucking 0800 whatever it is for fucking the Samaritans. They ain't doing that. They're reaching out to real people online that they've connected with. Because I've come out on here and I've spilt my guts. There's no fucking shit on me. Nobody can come out and say, yeah, you did it. I've told everything I've done. Yes, I was suicidal. Yes, I drank every night. Yes, I've done things I'm not fucking proud of. But I'm here. And it takes its toll on you. It really fucking does.
I agree. I mean, I've had my fair share of it in the last few weeks. I imagine I probably got it a little bit quicker than you did, even though you'll be getting far more by dint of my profession. But one thing that I've certainly found on social media is that even if people don't know you, they feel like they do know you because obviously they've seen you and they've heard your voice. So even though you've not met them in person, it can be quite... it takes you back, doesn't it? Because that person feels like they've known you, even though you've never actually had a personal interaction. One thing I certainly see with people reaching out to me, and you've already touched on this, are those people who are struggling, they've got anxiety. And one of the most common things that you do see is that they don't have responsibility in their life. And if they don't have responsibility, they feel like they do have meaning. They don't have meaning. Ben, come sit over here. It's too weird talking to someone. Ben, I've got a medical theory I'm going to tell you about.
Well then.
And certainly in my own practices, I've now got a theory about video games because I imagine you're like me. You quite like video games. They're fun.
I like
PS3,
them, don't really play them. No.
PS3, Xbox. Video game addiction has actually become an official diagnosis that you can have now. Genuinely, you can be diagnosed with that condition.
It's a bit wimpy, innit?
And I'm sure it's because it gives people a false sense of responsibility. So I'll give you an example. When you go onto a game, you have to adopt a character and you've got a challenge. There's obviously a purpose. If the game is too easy, you lose interest in it. But if the game is too difficult, you won't play it because you don't feel like you're making any progress. Yeah. The games that are particularly addictive, Skyrim, the most addictive game is Rocket League, is where the challenge is doable. You feel like you've got a sense of purpose, but you can make progress on it. And I think it's a really dangerous thing. And a huge proportion of the people who are diagnosed with video game addiction are young men because it gives them a false sense of purpose.
He's not doing that, Booth.
Nick.
Ben's made his first appearance on a podcast. That is not getting cut out. People are loving young Ben.
I was responding to it and I just had to say something. I was like, it's too weird me talking to an empty thing. With Nick. I was like, Ben, come over.
I've just been for a piss and I didn't tell anybody. I just slowly snuck out. I thought Jamie can hold the fort for a while. And young Ben has just been sat in the podcast chair. It's not getting cut out. He's on there because I think young Ben, he hates me calling him young Ben. Hates it. He says, I don't want to be fucking known as young Ben. But he's always going to be young Ben to me, isn't he?
Yeah, of course he will. Right, anyway, so basically...
That's the end of that.
One of the things that what I was talking about when you go, for instance, one of the things you just said is that a common theme in people who are struggling is they don't have responsibility and therefore they don't feel like they have meaning in their lives. I'm absolutely certain this is why video game addiction now exists, because it gives you a false sense of purpose. That's essentially what we were talking about. Another really common thing is use of marijuana. I see so many, when I was in GP, I saw so many patients, particularly young people, and I would say more specifically than that, younger males between the ages of 18 to 40, I would say, who they're drinking a little bit too much. They say the weed helps their anxiety, but they're hyper anxious at the same time. It's destroying their relations with family members and friends. They can't hold down a job. And they won't blame the cannabis, but there's absolutely a link. Does that make sense? But it's a bit of a double-edged sword. No, that's not a double-edged sword.
It does make absolute sense. And my best friend that we all know, Lee, he is absolutely convinced that the age you start smoking weed at, you get stuck there mentally. He said, I've seen it too many times. Somebody starts chonging at 18 and that's it. And they're still stuck in those same habitual loops, those same thought processes, those same self-development. And he's like, honestly, Rosie, I'm fucking convinced of it. I've seen it too many times. Let's not beat around the bush. I've known a lot of guys in the past that have fucking started smoking weed. Luckily for me, I was always the tennis ace. I was always the tennis player. So I mixed with guys that were doing weed all day long. And they all seem to be stuck in that same cycle that they were then. They're scoring their weed. They're doing the same kind of job that's just paying enough for them to pay their rent and pay for their weed and pay for their rent and pay for their weed. They're in the same kind of shitty relationships with girls or boys, if whatever, that were a kind of a little bit abusive and then heightened, sex, and were making up. All those kind of things you do as an immature lad or girl. And he's convinced that's the downfall of a lot of young people is they start smoking. And I'm not talking about the occasional joint, but I know guys that are fucking smoking 10, 15 joints a day, and they've been doing it since they were 16, and they're still doing it now. And their life hasn't progressed. They haven't had these life experiences and gone travelling necessarily. Look, there's always going to be the outliers, but there's still the same friendship groups, those kind of abusive, usury type friendships where you're not really nobody's pulling you up on your bullshit and saying, come on, man, you're fucking doing some shit here to yourself. He's convinced that.
I think there's probably a lot of truth in that, because when you do start taking weed habitually, one of the first changes that you observe is a loss of a productive routine and self-development. I'm not entirely sure why this is, but...
Is that the same with a lot of drugs, though?
Possibly.
Alcohol, possibly, as well?
I don't think it so much would be on alcohol. And
it's weird because, Nick that we both sat and spoke to, he was highly productive.
Exactly.
Putting 250 grams of coke up his nose a day.
He's taking different substances, isn't he? I think alcohol is one of the ones that, whilst being incredibly harmful, people do seem to be able to take and stay very productive in certain areas of their life, of which work is one of them. In my own experience, which is still significant, I have not seen that trajectory. I don't think that is applicable to weed or cannabis, if that makes
sense.
Typically, they are people who are anxious, destroyed relationships, can't hold down a job. They take the weed because they say it helps their anxiety, which might be true during the times of intoxication, but as soon as you're off it, weed is statistically linked to causing anxiety.
And what's that because? Is it an increase in cortisol or something like that?
There's a lot about THC and CBD that we don't really know.
Yeah.
Certainly people would be able to give far better responses to what I could give you now. But regular use of cannabis is linked with anxiety, psychosis, schizophrenia. And I don't think a lot of people really know it. Probably the worst way you could take it from an overall health perspective would be smoking, because then you've got the associated risks of smoking as well, chronic cough, lung scarring, and everything that goes with that. But there's too much of it that we don't know.
What happens when you eat weed?
So
why is that so different? Does it makes a different compound, doesn't it?
It is metabolized slightly differently. So when you ingest weed via mouth, i.e., why am I still talking like this? When you eat it, essentially, it takes a little bit longer for it to reach maximum level in your bloodstream.
But doesn't it create a completely different... Google it, Ben.
It is, yeah. I can't remember what it's called.
3-HTCP something, whatever it is.
It's a version of the same thing, essentially. It's metabolized slightly different. It takes longer to reach its peak clinical effect, and it also takes longer to leave your system. Mm-hmm. So you will feel the effects of it for longer. I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine, considering some of the effects are stronger when you eat it, then there would be associated risks with that. The flip side of that is that you obviously take away all the risks from smoking as well.
Do you think we should legalise drugs?
I think it's a really interesting question, because 31% of UK adults below the age of... Hang on, let's get it up.
So here's the peak effects.
Let's come back to that question.
You will feel the effects from seconds to a few minutes of inhaling. Compared to eating, you will feel the effects within 30 minutes to 2 hours of ingesting. Peak effects, full effects when you smoke can be peak within 30 minutes. Full effects can peak within 4 hours after eating it. Length of effects can be 6 hours after use. Some residual effects can last up to 24 hours after smoking. And when you eat it, effects can last up to 12 hours after use. Yeah. Some residual can last up to 24 hours.
That's interesting, isn't it? So it's sort of like a kind of hangover effect. In terms of whether we should legalise... What are you asking me? Whether we should legalise cannabis or legalise drugs?
So, should we just legalise drugs? Because we're all human beings, and it's all our own body, and a lot of the crime and deaths could possibly be prevented if you allowed people to do what they wanted to do with their own bodies in a safe and controlled way, whilst bringing in taxes for the country.
I'll tell you what, let me go and educate myself on this a little bit more, and we'll properly touch on it in the next podcast. With that said, I'll answer your question as best as I can at the minute. Yeah. The demand for drugs is not going to go away. 31% of UK adults between the age of 16 and 59 have tried cannabis at some point. Just because it's illegal does not mean that demand is going to stop. It's not. And where there is demand, there is always going to be business. Mm-hmm. One of the strongest arguments, in my opinion, for legalizing certain drugs and regulating them is that we leave that business to criminals. And off the face of it, that sounds like absolute madness. You know, why would you let criminals, like for instance, you would never leave criminals in charge of the healthcare system or in charge of the government, yet we do leave them in charge of an incredibly important and dangerous business.
Yes. I've never thought about it like that. I've literally never thought about it like that. Could you imagine allowing criminals to run any other worldwide global business that is affecting how many? 63% of people?
31% of UK adults.
31%. 31%
of UK adults have tried cannabis.
You are letting...
And I imagine the real statistics are higher than that.
But we're not even talking criminals. We're talking people that aren't qualified in business, pharmaceuticals, chemistry, physics, none of that. It's literally moonshining back in the day when alcohol was banned in the States.
And it's a compelling argument. The flip side of it is drug deaths have increased drastically in the last couple of years in the UK. I think the government's just say no policy probably has a bit to answer for on that, because one of the things that they did is they didn't want people addicted to any form of medication. And I'll give you an example for that. Some people who are addicted to heroin, they come off it and they take a similar opioid called buprenorphine or methadone.
Yep.
This is a medication that is obviously FDA approved and it's safer. The effects last for longer. And people who have a dependence or a tolerance on opioids such as heroin or morphine, whether that's by smoking or ingesting, will naturally find it exceedingly difficult to stop taking those medications. And it can be dangerous, so you need that intermediate step. One of the things that they criticised was people were getting parked on methadone for months, sometimes years at a time, of which there is some truth in it. But then what's the alternative? You take the methadone away, and what do you expect people who are in rehabilitation to do? Are they going to stop taking opioids altogether, or are a large proportion of them going to go and try and score heroin off the street? It doesn't really take a genius to figure it out, does it?
No.
And as soon as some of those policies changed, drug deaths increased massively in the UK. I'm a little bit torn, and I think we have to be incredibly careful. We'll absolutely have this discussion before we go down that, but I think it's a one-way street. And the reason I think that, a lot of people think that if alcohol was introduced now into the UK, it wouldn't be a legal drug. But what government in the world is going to suggest banning it? Well, none, because they're not going to get voted in, are they? And I think that's one of the worries about legalizing. So if we were to legalize cannabis, and we'll have to review the literature in Amsterdam and other places.
The States, New York.
The States, exactly.
Isn't it?
I think it's a one-way route, because I think as soon as we legalize cannabis, I don't think it will ever be unlegalized, because it's far harder for a government to propose something like that and for them to get voted in. It's a really interesting question. I don't entirely know what I think about it. I mean,
but societally, is it going to be detrimental?
Well, that's the thing. The flip. Let's have a look at the statistics, and I'll go away and do this at my own time, and then because the danger is that if you do legalize them, are you going to increase the prevalence and the number of people using these drugs? Now, the part of me that's seen the destructive effects that even cannabis, whether people believe it or not, has on individuals and families, says that surely the right thing to do here is not introduce more drugs. Does that, like, for instance, the shooting in America, like one of the arguments is, well, if more civilians had guns, then they would be able to defend themselves. Like, how on earth is introducing more weapons into a population a good idea? And I think you could apply similar arguments to the drug scene as well.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right there, because what you've just touched upon, I sat here yesterday with Nick, and I said to him, I have absolutely no idea how to go and score a gram of coke. I have no idea. So if I was rock bottom one night and I felt like getting fucked, I can't do it, because I've got no contacts to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. However, if I could just go down to and I'm not saying cocaine's going to be legalised, but if I could go down to the local off licence and buy a gram of coke and get fucked off my nut, I'd have probably done it in certain situations. Equally, I've been fucking raging with some guy that's just done this, that, and the other. I've not got a gun in my pocket, so I've not ended up shooting. What would have happened if I did?
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting question, isn't it? I'll have to go away and inform myself, but I mean, it's certainly at the very minimum makes for a good discussion because I find both arguments are actually very convincing. Right, let's have a look at this. So marijuana use after medical legalization for adults aged 21 and older, 2004 to 2011. So increase in probability of use, 16%. Increase in frequency of use, 12 to 17%. Increase in abuse/dependence, 15 to 27%. Increase in frequency of binge drinking, 6 to 9%.
So
those are significant statistics.
Yeah, but that's binge drinking. That's nothing to do with marijuana.
Well, those
so
are
increase in binge drinking goes up between 6 to 9%.
I mean, these are statistics that are very difficult to ignore. Again, one of the things. Where
are these from, Ben? Because I'm always fucking a little bit wary of some dickhead on TikTok could have made that on Canva and stuck it up somewhere. Where are these coming from? National Bureau of Economic Research. Okay. Okay.
What country is it based in?
Well, it's only going to be the countries that it's legalised in, isn't it? So I'm guessing the states. What countries is it legal in? Holland? Or is it just Amsterdam? I don't think it's countrywide in Holland, is it?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think it's just Amsterdam. I just think it's parts of Amsterdam.
Depends on the case, but certainly...
And it's certain states. It's not all states.
This is something we talked about with cocaine and alcohol, but...
Here we go. So, countries that have legalised recreational use of cannabis are Canada, Georgia, Luxembourg, Malta, Mexico, South Africa, Thailand, Uruguay, plus 24 states, 3 territories, and the District of Columbia in the United States, and the Australian Capital Territory in Australia. I didn't know it was in Australia. So it's basically everywhere except for the UK. You've got a couple of European countries there, Luxembourg, Malta.
Yeah, I'll go away and research it, but certainly one of the things you and I talked about is the increased risk of cocaine consumption as soon as you introduce alcohol into the equation. It's a very comparable picture with cannabis as well. The risks do increase, and it's worth taking those two compounds together than it is taking either of them individually, because there's so many interactions, there's so many different types of effects. Cannabis is particularly interesting because...
What about cannabis and alcohol?
That's what we're talking about, cannabis and alcohol.
Is that the same as cannabis in cocaine?
What do you mean? Do you mean is that the same
like
as alcohol and cocaine?
Because you were saying on the last podcast that it almost creates a different chemical, cocaine and alcohol.
I would be amazed if it doesn't, if it is my honest answer.
Yeah.
Cannabis is particularly interesting because in some regards it's a depressant medication and in others it's a stimulant. Yeah. It's quite hard to categorize into any particular category. One of the reasons for that.
What's marijuana? Is that a stimulant or is that
that's cannabis, marijuana?
That's a
weed.
Stimulant.
So it's a stimulant in some regards and a depressant in others.
So when you say stimulant, what do you mean? Increased heart rate, alertness, all of those
So
things?
it does increase your heart rate. One of the immediate risks after taking weed is that you're increasing heart rate and blood pressure and the associated risks that go with that. It's a depressant in some way. One of the most common reasons that people take it is they cite that they like that feeling of feeling relaxed. So that's a good example of, more of the depressant side of it. But the effects of alcohol and cannabis are so diverse.
Alcohol is a depressant.
Alcohol is a depressant. One of the reasons that it causes behavioural problems is that it switches off or diminishes some of our body's inhibitors. Yeah. So it's kind of a depressant of an inhibitor. So a minus and a minus makes a plus. And the result of that is that people can feel more energised.
Yes, so which I certainly do.
A lot of people do. Weed is generally much harder to categorise into any one position. One of the reasons for that is that it's got 2 principal compounds, CBD and THC. So CBD is one of the things that's currently being explored on a massive level for uses such as helping anxiety, anti-inflammatory, and many other things as well, whereas THC is the compound that gets you high.
It's just interesting here what Ben's brought up is literally what you just said. Drinking alcohol before smoking weed can ramp up the effects of cannabis's active ingredient, THC.
Oh, so here it says both weed and alcohol are depressant
Yeah.
drugs. Maybe I'm wrong. My understanding is that cannabis is far harder to categorize. The effects of each individual substance become exaggerated. Well, there you go, yeah.
So these are going to affect self-control, decision-making, judgment, reflexes, movement, perception of time, emotions, inhibitions, senses, and sexual desire and function.
Ben, just put into Google, is weed a stimulant or depressant? Because I feel like we could get a better answer than what we found on...
But it's exactly what you're saying, isn't it?
Delamere.com.
It changes so many aspects of your day-to-day feelings and...
Yeah, I was right. There we go.
So a depressant.
And that's from the National Institute of Health.
Marijuana is a complex chemical not yet fully understood, but it's not a narcotic. What does that mean? It's not a narcotic.
It doesn't put you to sleep, isn't it?
So what does narcotic mean?
Well, it refers to sleep. It's not really...
Yes, because narcolepsy is...
a very
something to do with
interesting
sleep, isn't it?
condition where people's sleep pathways are highly dysregulated.
Yeah. I didn't know that because I've always heard of narcotics related consumption of narcotic substances. A drug that affects mood or behaviour and is consumed for non-medical purposes, especially one sold illegally.
Right, so we'll have to... I mean, that is in complete disagreement with what was said on the other thing, that it's not a narcotic then, isn't it? So, to be honest, it's one of those terms that's thrown around a little bit like sinew, but it's not really actually used within medicine generally.
And sinew being parts of the
like sinew,
body that you don't really know. It's not a muscle. It's not a. It's not a ligament. It
sounds like a medical word,
just
doesn't
sinew,
it? But
yeah.
just sinew, just...
It's something that you don't know. So, why do you think these countries have legalised it? Because there has to be far more intelligent people than you and I sitting discussing these things.
Far more informed, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, it is business, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when there is demand, there's going to be business. What is he doing?
Wanking that bottle of Lucasade off. That's what you get when you've got a 16-year-old being the producer of a podcast.
It's so distracting. We're like, have a proper discussion.
I'm used to it now. He's just...
I find it hilarious.
Oh, man. But it's... how long do you think it's going to be till it's legalised in the UK? Because I think we're just gearing up for it. I think all these vape shops that have automatically sprung up over the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about
geared up to sell
vaping.
weed.
Vaping actually infuriates me because the whole premise of this idea essentially went off that it was a doable step for smokers to stop smoking, start vaping, stops vaping, and then quit. Obviously, it's exactly what the vape manufacturers knew would happen, and it's just been the complete reverse.
Do you know my biggest bone of contention with vaping? I'm walking down the street and I get this amazing waft of candy floss and toffee apples, thinking that round the corner is going to be a toffee apple stand and a candy floss stand, that I'm going to be able to go and buy something lovely. And I walk around the corner and it's some 15-year-old chonging on a massive vape. And there is no candy floss stand or toffee apple stand.
It's really dangerous because so many people vape. A pack year smoking is defined as 20 cigarettes each day for an entire year.
Yeah.
I know vapors who reckon that they have 400 or 500 puffs on a vape every single day. It's just relentless. There's people who literally can't put these things down. And when I said the process was in reverse, obviously I would say most people just kind of get stuck on that vaping stage, don't they?
Yeah.
But, I mean, clearly there's going to have been far more people who have started vaping from doing nothing than there have been who smoked and then started vaping. I would say if you do vape and don't think it's too bad for you, then you really need to hear this advice. You're putting something in your lungs that isn't air, but vaporized water with over 2,000 chemicals, which has been produced for a matter of pennies in a laboratory, there's no way that is going to be having a good effect on you. It doesn't matter if there's no evidence at this point.
It doesn't take a nuclear scientist
It doesn't.
to figure out that inhaling anything into your lungs that isn't fresh air is going to be detrimental.
Of course.
In some way, shape or form.
And then you look at the chemicals involved in these things and they make it flavoured like, I don't know, candy floss and berry ice. I mean, like, what the hell even is that? And then you walk through it and you're like, oh, I see what you mean. It does. I didn't know that flavour.
Smell quite nice.
I didn't know that flavour existed.
No.
But I think it's incredibly sinister from the vaping companies. And
yeah.
I would fully support any steps in place to make it as difficult as possible for people, especially young people, to access these kind of products.
But then,
one thing I was going to say,
it says, why should we be stopping people from doing what they want to do with their life?
Well, it's a great question, isn't it? But we have to understand that people have a tendency to make ridiculous decisions.
Yes.
I mean, if a 10-year-old, for instance, should we be letting them make decisions about their future and their financial, medical purposes?
Is this not just survival of the fittest?
Well, if you were going to say this is survival of the fittest, then probably you could
if,
take away a huge amount of legislation that's there to
could you imagine
save
the
lives.
world if everybody that decided to chong on some 2,000 chemical Chinese-made whatever all of a sudden didn't get the chance to reproduce for the next 20 years or whatever it was? Do you know what I mean? It is ultimately let people do what they want to do. Some people want to see what it feels like to jump off the edge of a cliff with a paper bag strapped to their back called a parachute and see what happens. And some of them make it and some of them don't. But I don't think we should stop. I don't know. Should we stop people from doing? Because we've all got 80 Christmases. That's it.
Well, it's far less if you make ridiculous decisions about your health.
But would you rather live 45 Christmases absolutely on the edge, adrenaline fueled, loving it, experiencing things, or 80 Christmases of dog shit, doing nothing, eating Brussels?
I understand what you're saying, but without any sort of specific theme, then the words are essentially meaningless. What we're talking about here is the use of recreational substances which increase your health risks, increase your mortality, increase your morbidity, and the relief and pleasure that people get from them is typically very, very short term. I don't think there's sufficient evidence to say that they do improve your quality of life.
But should we be imposing on somebody that they can't do that?
Well, that's a different discussion, but for you to employ that kind of argument, I think the answer in the middle ground is education on it. But certainly with people who are younger people, obviously they've had less chance to expose themselves to education and experiences. Therefore, I think it's a sensible law, personally, in my opinion, for us to impose the same restrictions on vaping that we do on alcohol and smoking.
Do we not?
You
can't buy vapes unless you're 18, can you?
No, you can, yeah. I mean, up until...
Well, you can buy alcohol if you're 15, if you go to the right shop. But I mean,
you can't,
legally...
Well, you can't do it legally, and that's the important thing. I mean, illegal is a completely different question. But unless the legislation has currently gone through, currently a 14-year-old can still go to a shop and buy a vape.
Really?
It might be a 15-year-old now.
That's not true, is it? Well, how old can you be in the UK to buy vapes? 18, isn't it?
So Rishi Sunak came out and he said their new legislation was...
Google it. Well, Google it. You've got the world of information at your fingertips there, young man.
He's insisting on...
And he's insisting on...
using the force.
Yes. So say again, Rishi Sunak was what?
Well, he came out and he said that they were imposing new legislation where they were going to increase the legal minimum age of vaping by 1 year every year starting from now, meaning that
No, that was smoking, and I don't think they brought it in.
No, they did officially bring it in.
Have they?
It's 14 for vaping.
Can I vape at 16? A common question asked by young teenagers. The answer is no. You cannot vape at 16 because the earliest legal age you can vape is 18 years old. In the UK, e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is an addictive substance, and you cannot smoke legally until you turn 18.
We obviously need to investigate this because this is something that Rishi Sunak said a matter of weeks ago.
I think what he was saying was about smoking, and I think he proposed if he gets in the next time, I don't think this has been, I don't think this is a law yet, was to increase the age of smoking by a year or something every year, so that means that somebody born now will never legally be allowed to smoke.
You said a 14-year-old today.
Oh, is that what it was? But I don't think that's been brought in.
No, I didn't think it's been brought in either.
I think it was an idea.
Which is why I'm confused by what they're spending. We need to get something better than a blog, I think.
Complete flag.
Well, no, well, fair enough.
You can't go into a shop and buy a vape if you're under 18.
But regardless of whether you can or you can't,
No,
people
you
are
do
still
say
doing
here
it.
the legal age to purchase and use an e-cigarette is 18 years. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's 18, isn't it?
We'll have to get that thing that Rishi was saying then.
But it was definitely something, and that was to do with smoking tobacco products, definitely.
So it'll be something very similar
something
regardless.
similar. And look, it was some pie-in-the-sky bullshit that he's just said that hopefully is going to get him some votes. It's never going to come in. They make too much money out of cigarettes, Jamie.
Well, here we go. Under a proposed smoking ban, so a 14-year-old today will never be able to legally buy a cigarette.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that the grandpa or the granddad's not being able to buy it for them.
But that implies that a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old currently can buy a cigarette.
No, it means that by the time the 14-year-old gets to 18, because it will be increasing a year each year or whatever it is, they will never legally be able to buy it, because by the time they're 18, the legal limit will be 24. And by the time they're 24, the legal limit will be 28 or whatever it will. But listen, if the government gave a single fuck about our health, they would ban it. They would ban smoking and they would ban alcohol. They don't give a fuck. They bring too much money in.
Wow, that's really harsh, isn't it? I don't think they don't care. But it's that balance between educating people to make sensible health decisions and not imposing on their free will, which is something that you've touched on in some detail already. I don't think it's fair to just go and broadly categorise a parliament of 650 individuals as none of them caring as a collective whole.
You said that alcohol would not be legalised if it was invented today. Why is it still legalised? Because it brings too much money in.
Because no government who proposed to delegalize it would ever be voted into power. That's just the reality of the situation. Yeah. That doesn't mean that they don't care about it. One thing I do think we generally have is a tendency to put too much emphasis on a lack of medical evidence. And I'll give you an example for that. In the 1950s, a significant proportion of doctors smoked. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, any doctor who's smoking, it doesn't take a genius to walk through a cloud of smoke and think this probably isn't good for me. Mm-hmm. I would argue quite strongly that any medic who was smoking, not thinking that was going to have a negative impact on your health, does not have a basic fundamental understanding of medicine. As soon as the evidence started to come through that it was incredibly damaging, then the cigarette companies changed tack and they said there's now no evidence that secondhand smoking causes any dangers. So you take a step back and you're like, hang on, but it's the same smoke that person's breathing in, that person's just got from the cigarette. Why is that going to cause any difference? But at that point, obviously, the evidence wasn't there. And obviously, the evidence arrived because how could it not arrive? And I think we're observing exactly the same thing today with vaping. There are risks. There are studies coming out now showing that it increases your risk of certain lung conditions, as of course it would. But why do we require that evidence to draw what is a basic common sense conclusion, if that makes sense?
Because it's only common sense in hindsight.
It's not common sense in hindsight. I've made that prediction now about vaping. There's nothing hindsight about it. It's not yet happened.
Your prediction on vaping is based on your knowledge of smoking.
It is based on my knowledge, but that wasn't what was happening before. So it doesn't require hindsight. I mean, certainly the second-hand smoke. I mean, yes, there is a thing called hindsight bias.
Okay, so what if the tobacco companies were paying doctors to not let the truth out?
No, we're getting into a conspiracy here.
No,
again.
but there's a lot of money involved, and wherever money's involved, you only need to go and see who's funding the medical studies, and a lot of the time, it's a
they did it in a legal
company. It's a meat company. It's a dairy farm. It's a tobacco company.
And that's how they do it legally. And certainly that they used to use doctors in their adverts to try and promote it, which is just frankly evil.
But it wasn't at the time. We evolve. We learn things.
And yes, you are right. There is a thing called hindsight bias, which is where it is easy to interpret events that have already happened as predictable. With that said, we are talking about someone breathing out the same smoke, and then we need the evidence for it to prove that it causes the same conditions as taking the smoke in directly.
Yeah.
That's not hindsight bias. That's not me being able to sit here and say it's easy in hindsight. That's basic common sense. It really is. And it is the same thing on vaping. And there is a general problem with it. What are we looking at? King confirms new laws that means nobody under 14 will ever be able to buy cigarettes.
My government will introduce legislation to create a smoke-free generation.
Don't you look like a twat with that hat on? Because I just associate that with the Queen.
So that children currently aged 14 or younger can never be sold cigarettes.
So why don't they just ban it now? No, they've not. This never going to happen, because how much money is the government going to lose out on in tax, VAT?
Yeah.
They are not going to do it. It is not going to happen.
Let's have a proper chat next time. I need to shoot, really.
It's waffle, it's nonsense, it's sound bites, and it's not going to happen. But I agree. Let's reconvene. 941 billion. The tobacco products market worldwide is projected to generate a revenue of 940. Come on. They are not going to do anything significant to dent that until they've got a way of getting the money from somewhere else. Now, that might be taxing people driving into the centre of London because they've got a petrol car. It might be taxing people because of CO2. Ben's, what's it saying? How much profit does tobacco industry make? How much money does tobacco make a year? 274 million.
274 million less
Than last year.
Well, that's 10,000 million, so 10 billion.
Yeah. So, and unless the UK government can find a way of getting that money from somewhere else, they are not going to do anything that's going to dent it. They're going to do things that are lip service, sound bites. Let's get the views up on the Daily Mail and Sky News and take revenue from them. They don't give a fuck. The same as alcohol. If they really cared about society's health, they ban alcohol and they ban cigarettes. Simple as that.
To be continued. Thank you, sir.
My guy.